at some point it will break through the $50 level. And well, it's a technical thing. We've seen it also now, just recently, when silver broke through the 21 level. That was kind of like unleash the power, and bam, it went to 30 within a few weeks. So if silver breaks the $50 level on a sustainable basis, meaning a weekly, monthly close, yeah, it's off. It's off to the sky is the limit. Yeah. So I think we easily can go to $100.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics, covering the gold and silver rally of 2020. Florian, isn't that exciting that maybe like 10 or 20 years from now, we'll be able to do another one of these calls and we'll be like, you remember the old rally of 2020? And who knows? It's interesting as I'm here with Florzinho Grummes of Midas Touch Consulting. It's nice. Florian is in Germany today, so we get a European perspective on the silver market, which will be fun to dig into, especially because by the time the year is done and then a decade or two passes and we're talking about the 2020 rally, we don't really know what the end point is going to be. The price could be lower, the price could be higher. When I see what's happening with the metal going into the trust, allegedly, and also this run on the COMEX gold and silver, to me, it's least plausible that we could, it's not saying it will happen, but if we had the COMEX finally undressed for the public this year and some of the bigger numbers of gold and silver, I would not be surprised. So will be fun to dig into today. And how are you today, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And how is life in Germany? I was mentioning before we hit the record button, I was looking to go back to Europe, although I guess they're not probably letting Americans in at the moment. But what are things like in Germany these days?
It depends probably on your perspective and where you based and what are you doing, right? I mean, the corona thing has hit people quite differently. I mean, I personally can't complain. I'm focusing on precious metals. I'm a trader from home, basically. I also focus on cryptocurrencies, both sectors that have been very interesting over the last few months. If you are an employee somewhere in a big company and it was closed, you might have had a good time receiving money from the government, not needing to work. But if you run a restaurant or a shop or a bar, whatever, you probably have a pretty dire and challenging situation right now, like everywhere in the world. And if I just listen to some of my neighbors, the responses are very, very different. I mean, some are doing okay. Most of them are having a challenging time, honestly, right? And as long as the governments keep printing money and forbidding insolvencies and trying to keep everything business as usual, it seems to be okay-ish, I think. But we both know that the question is probably just how long this can continue and at what point it will really blow off. And we don't know. I just know that Madame Lagarde is printing every week, I think 10 billions at least every week out of thin air. And most of the people don't think about it. They don't care. They don't even want to think about it. If you start talking to them about these topics, they kind of like freak out or don't really want to go into depth. But that's how it is. I mean, I think it's still a good opportunity for us. The end is, I think, sure. It's just a question, how long will it take, right? And I think that's the big question. And personally, I assume it will probably, again, take longer than we all expect and think. I mean, I'm into precious metals now for 20 years. So I started investing in gold, 2001, I think. And I bought my first Kruger run on eBay because there was no dealer in nada available where you could go to, or there was also no online store available. So things have changed quite a lot. We have a vibrant gold scene here in Germany. Lots of dealers, especially also online stores, very competitive pricings. You have very good websites where you can compare the dealers, everything basically. So pretty active scene, I would say. And yeah, Germans have been quite a strong gold buyer nation over the last 15 years. And that, I assume, will continue. And I think every day there's somebody waking up here and realizing that they have to or should basically save their hard-earned money into precious metals, right?
Yeah, and maybe some of those gold investors, after the time they hear your talk today, they're going to say, "Well, what's this other little silver look at? Silver? Oh my goodness!" And the market's smaller. There's more leverage, and most of it's used for industrial application. I want some. Not investment advice. I'm just saying that might happen, and by all means, do what feels right to you. Although, Florian, I appreciate you mentioned about, well, it's nice that you, I mean, as much as one can appreciate someone mentioning central banks, it's like, this topic. Although I think the one thing that we can count on, and I was thinking how there are not many guarantees in the financial markets, except I'm going to break a political scoop today here on the air. I'm honored that you're with me. But I'm going to tell you who is going to win the U.S. presidential election. It's going to be Ben Bernanke's printing press, because whether it's Democrat or Republican, they'll have plenty of debates, saying it's everybody's fault. The Easter Bunny did this. In the end, we know what they're going to do. And it's interesting because earlier this week, we had gold and silver prices up quite a bit. And then I believe it was Tuesday, they got absolutely pummeled. And you can perhaps share the European perspective, but everyone was wondering, oh my God, gold and silver, was it a bubble? And the bubble has popped. And then 2 days later, gold's up $33. It was up more at one point, and silver has rebounded over $27. So perhaps a great lesson in the difference a day's perspective makes. And but with the central banks around the globe, not even just in the U.S., doing what they're doing, I mean, it's like you said, we don't know the timing, but it almost like has to go higher. These guys are guaranteeing that it will. What do you say about that?
Yes, I think there is no doubt about that. In the longer term and even in the mid-term, prices will move higher. And I mean, compared to where I started buying at $300 20 years ago, we are much higher. But it's not going to be a linear development, right? I mean, you will have certainly, I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. In July, we had a very extreme, overextended move in both metals. And so the metals were ripe for a correction. And I assume right now that this correction will last a little bit longer. I don't think it's over. But I'm very sure that latest by next year, we will see new all-time highs in gold. And then we will also see silver moving above $30 for sure.
Yeah,
so that's pretty sure. And I can only say that use the time for the next few months. It could be a little bit of a challenging and shaky time in front of the US election. And I really recommend to use any weakness in those two markets to add and buy more physical stuff, especially. We don't know exactly how it will play out, but from my experience, I've seen a few of those blow-off tops in gold and silver. And usually it takes a few weeks or a few months until that is kind of like corrected and digested. And then the market will move up again. So I wouldn't be surprised to see gold coming down to 1,800 and then even maybe 1,700, 725 would be the first Fibonacci retracement level. The 200-day moving average is, I think, 1685 right now in gold. So those are the levels I think we should realistically expect in gold. And silver, I'd say, yeah, 23 is probably given, 21 also, maybe a quick dip below 20, which would be a wonderful opportunity. But I don't see it moving that much lower anymore. And yeah, I mean, look, this is the typical behavior that we've seen. Gold has been rising for 2 years unbelievable. Silver made a new low in March. It's been in a correction for nearly, I think, 9 years, right? May 2011, the top at $50, and in March 2020, 9 years later, it makes a new low. And I mean, unbelievable. And then it goes up 155% within 4 months. So that's silver, right? It's just crazy. But then it basically had this strong few weeks in June and July is really typical, because silver, as you know, is always the last one. And then suddenly it's the fastest one of them all. And basically on the last few meters of a large upwave in the whole sector, suddenly silver shows up and moves ahead of everybody. So, and that's actually also a warning signal that when silver really performs, we are at the end of an upwave in the cycle, in the sector. So we have to assume that we are in front of a few corrective months, I think. But that obviously will be a great opportunity to load up even more and make sure to be prepared for what's coming, because as you said correctly, there's no way out. They will continue to print more, and it's not only the Fed, it's not only the ECB, but it's basically all of them everywhere on this planet, whether you go to China, Brazil, England, Australia, they're all printing like crazy, and they will all basically destroy the currencies, and they will basically create the fundament for much higher gold and silver prices.
Yeah, I sure think so. And I did hear an interesting interview with you. I believe it was with Rob Keens of Gold Silver Pros. And I believe you said that you are in the school of thought that, similar to what Keith Neumeyer mentions, that we will see triple digit silver, $100 or higher at some point. Is that what you see? And any thoughts on how to put that in the right context?
Yes, I mean, silver is one of the few commodities that is basically way below its 1980 high, right?
Yep.
And it is a byproduct of mainly the copper production. Now, the many mines had to close down due to Corona over the last few months, so that certainly also put some fire on the pricing. But I think if we run again towards $50 in silver, it would be the third time. Okay, we will probably see another pullback. We might see another pullback at that level, but I don't think it will pull back all the way to 20 or 15 or 10. It probably will pull back to maybe 35-ish, maybe just 40, something like this. And then it will attack again the $50 level. And probably the fourth, fifth, sixth attempt, and they will happen faster and faster. It will not take another 20 years. So at some point, it will break through the $50 level. And well, you know, it's a technical thing. We've seen it also now, just recently, when silver broke through the 21 level. That was kind of like a unleash the power, and bam, it went to 30 within a few weeks. So if silver breaks the $50 level on a sustainable basis, meaning a weekly, monthly close, yeah, it's off. It's off to the sky is the limit. Yeah. So yeah. I think we easily can go to $100. And I think then we would have to probably more figure out, okay, if gold goes to $5,000 and we consider that the last time the metals peaked in 1980, the gold silver ratio was at 1 to 15. If you put that ratio to 5,000 gold, well, you have to do the math, and you will see that silver easily will go through a three-digit number. If gold goes to $9,000 or $10,000, which is also not impossible, but very likely over 5 years maybe, or who knows how fast they're gonna print, right? I mean, it's an exponential function at some point, and things will accelerate massively. So it can happen much faster, but it also can take 10 years. But yeah, I think it's easily thinkable that silver goes to $100, $250, $500 is very possible. So, but it takes time. You have to play really. You have to be prepared for a long-term game here. I don't think you can play this with options or any leveraged products or derivatives or ETFs or anything. You really want to have the physical stuff, you know, like this kind of thing you want to have. So and you want to hold it in a safe place and not lending it out not buying it on margin or credit or whatever. So, and then it's probably an easy ride, and you just let time work for you, right?
Yeah, and I guess that would make now an inappropriate time to mention my August silver stock expiration cycle on the options I have there. Because I think what you're saying is good advice. Again, my background is as an option trader, so I actually did have GLD and SLV on back in 2011, and it was looking great for a while on the way up to 50, less fun on the way down. So yeah, and still I think a good starting point. There's a big difference between that and physical. And well, if silver did go to $500 before August options expiration, I'm just going to sit here and imagine it for a moment. If there's some way that does happen, then I will fly over in my silver plated helicopter. I'm going to pick you up and we will go maybe to Mexico. We could find a silver mine, stop at the beach while we're there. It would be a good time. And, you know, along the lines of what you were saying, it's interesting because I've been thinking about how most of what most people know about the financial markets, a lot of it is the conditioned stuff we've been told, you know, of how the markets work, which, you know, someday we wake up and realize that's usually the opposite of how it actually goes. So it's like we have silver that went from like $2 up to 50 back in the 70s and 80s, then came back down. Now they had to use margin requirements that say people couldn't initiate buying position. Why can't someone initiate a buying? It's always interesting. Same with cryptos, where it's like, well, I don't know, why isn't the government banning Microsoft products? Why is it blockchain technology? It's just bizarre to me, the things that somehow that's for the safety of the people. But you see these governments get involved, and then we see silver where it hit 50, then 30 years later hits 50 again. And it even has a history of being controlled with the US government with what they were doing when it was in the coinage. So I don't think no one probably alive today has ever seen anything remotely resembling a free market pricing. So to your point of, you know, can we see $100 or higher? I like what you phrased where, I mean, it's not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but especially with the way these guys are never going to stop printing. It's like you said, it's an inevitability on some level, right?
Right. And I mean, it's not really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably not really about whether it goes to those numbers or not, because the question really then is what will be $100 or €100 be worth at that point, right? Maybe we don't know, right? I mean, if you study a little bit hyperinflation in Germany, the Weimar Republic, 100 years ago, I mean, people had to carry like really bags of paper money to buy a bread. Mm-hmm. And so similar things happening in Venezuela right now as we speak. It happened also in Zimbabwe. We all know the famous 1 trillion Zimbabwe dollar, right? So this is all very relative. The most important thing is that precious metals will help you to basically store and save your purchasing power right now. And certainly if there is a reset at some point, we don't know how this reset will play out. There's certainly quite a lot of options and possibilities. Will it be a state-controlled, managed reset in some form, and we are then suddenly on electronic money? Or will it be completely chaos? Or will it be whatever? I mean, there's lots of options on the table. Right now, I'm more of the belief that it will be probably chaos, even though right now we are in a setup or in a world where there's so little freedom like never before, probably. But at the same time, we see lots of chaotic scenes happening in all societies that we couldn't imagine a few years ago. So, and the dire consequences of this paper money Ponzi scheme, which is now in the 5th or 6th decade, right, since 1971. I mean, all these consequences are showing up more and more and more. Most of the people still don't understand it. They basically believe what the government is telling them, or basically what the socialists framing it, why this and that happens, and that they are all poor victims of the free market and blah blah blah, all these crappy lies. The truth is, yeah, it's true. And the truth is that we don't have a free market, right? I mean, if central banks dictate interest rates and they put it in basically negative interest rates, all markets are manipulated. So you don't even know what's in your Tesla stock, in your Apple stock, and so on and so on. It's all whatever. You cannot really figure it out. And now that they even forbid to be insolvent, I mean, so it's like you cannot go broke anymore as a company. You basically just continue as a zombie, and well, you don't know anymore. It's like,
plus you can just get the Fed to buy your bonds, even if you do.
So it's so ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the free market anymore. And we know from history that the consequences are really catastrophic. And it eats through the whole system, through the whole society, everywhere on the planet. And yeah, the only advice that I can always give is really prepare yourself, buy the physical gold and silver, buy some Bitcoin as well. I actually think the combination of silver and Bitcoin is the dream team for the cracker boom. So that's really ways that you can protect yourself. And then we have to see how it really plays out. And I try to, well, stay away from most of these crowded places, from big cities. I prefer to live in a distant location somewhere in the countryside. Keeping it easy, focus on the family, on good things, focus on I think there's still lots of positive things in life as well. So I think you can profit and prosper in these challenging times, but you have to disconnect yourself from the mainstream and from this fear-driven, crazy panic society.
It's kind of like if you had two friends, one's really successful, knows everything, everybody loves him, and it's like, then you have another guy that, you know, is just a complete disaster, you know, is blowing his money at the casino or getting loaded, and it's, you have a big important life decision coming up. It's like, who should I ask? Which one of these two? And that's kind of like mainstream Wall Street versus Austrian economics, at least in my opinion. And I appreciate you mentioned Weimar, and I have a question, especially from your perspective in Germany. Although before doing that, I couldn't resist this. Since you mentioned Tesla, Florzinho, I have a good question for you. Do you know what the price of Tesla is today?
No, I didn't check. I mean, I'm not invested in Tesla.
I'll tell you, and I'm going to show you the chart in a second. It's in American dollars, it's $1,626 right now. Okay,
yeah, I'm watching the chart. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, don't look at the chart yet, because I'm going to give you the
Okay.
brain buster.
Okay.
Do you know what the price of Tesla was last September, or even last August, so a year ago?
It must be, I think, much lower. I think 100 or 200, and then they had a stock split or something, right? So.
So as you quite wisely pointed out here, so August of 2019, I remember this because I was buying puts on it. I'm like, man, $200, that's a lot, this thing's. So now, and the connection here is that, what do we remember happened last September with the Fed when they started pumping trillions of dollars of repo lines in, which they never explained. And then Ben Bernanke-Powell has the audacity to go on 60 Minutes and lie directly to the entire world that's tied to his fraudulent currency when he says, this is different than the subprime crisis because everything was fine before Corona. Why was he doing swap lines? Why was he lowering interest rates before that? And is there, I don't know, could there be any connection how if it was $200, so it's up eightfold since the Fed? And I guess where I'd be curious, and certainly feel free to insert your Tesla jokes too, I will give you the platform, but I've wondered, do you think the dollar was already past Weimar Germany hyperinflation? I would say, even if we knew the real numbers, I'll bet you can make a case it was even past Weimar prior to the subprime debacle, let alone after that, or let alone after what we've just seen now, I'm assuming we get a fraction of what they're actually doing, and they tell us, some other number that's probably not close to reality. And I think their track record supports that. I mean, like, doesn't this at this point have to be almost more extreme than what was in the wheelbarrow?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to compare. I mean, if you look at the stock indices for stock prices in Weimar, I mean, obviously they went up, I think, not only a few 1,000%, but I think 1,000,000% or something. But the Reichsmark became completely worthless, completely. And now we have this basically happening on a worldwide basis with many different national economies, or even like the Eurozone and aggregated economy zone. So it's much more complex. And you can see like many stocks, I mean, if you take out those big tech companies plus Tesla, the indices look completely different, right? So it is very challenging to compare this. But in the end, yes, I'm very sure. I mean, this is like, the world is focusing on this. The governments are happy to hype these stocks as well. I mean, we have in the Eurozone, they have the EU Agenda 2030, where they basically want to like really become green energy sustainable, move away from fossil fuels and stuff. And which to a certain extent makes certainly sense, but of course, a planned economy, socialistic economy, will not really create good results. So they would throw, I think, 750 billions at a few projects, and I don't know what will come out of it.
And excuse me one moment, Florzinho, but is there any truth to the rumor? I heard that you can supersize that 2030 agenda, and they'll even throw in a microchip for free. By the way, that was improv. I didn't have that one plan. This is the kind of analysis you get on my show here. So I won't make you answer that, but continue, please. And thank you for indulging me.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think, look, it was at $200 a year ago. Now it's at 1,600. So it's up 800%. Still no earnings as far as I know. I mean, like, yeah.
Plus, I thought the whole economy had slowed down, like greatest economic disaster in history. So it's like, I don't know, maybe all the people out of work are buying Teslas. Actually, I think I figured it out. Maybe the Fed is buying Tesla shares. And probably, I mean, actually, it sounds kind of wild, although... I mean, whether
the Swiss government is doing it for years already. They're buying the American stocks.
And I mean, whether directly or indirectly, if the Fed's pumping up these insolvent banks who are de facto, I mean, so it's quite a circus going on out there, which is why I appreciate some voices of reason like yourself in these interesting times.
But look, this is really important. So this is exactly the definition of cracker boom. And the Austrian School of Economics are the only guys who basically have an explanation for what's going on right now. Because if you go out there in your normal mainstream financial advisor, manager, they are all lost. They don't know what to say. I mean, if they have some experience, they will say like, this is crazy. I never seen like this. The economy is basically more or less shut down. You find Italy on levels. I mean, the GDP level of Italy is like 1997 or something, or 1993. Greece is also like lost more than 23 years. Germany lost 10 years. Okay, the States only 6 years. And I think the best so far in comparison would be Korea, only 3 years lost thanks to Corona. And then you see the stock market making new all-time highs, explode. It doesn't make sense from your old school normal thinking. But you need to understand in a cracker boom, it's exactly that. Credit expansion, balance sheet expansion, creating money out of thin air. And yeah, completely disconnection of the fundamentals as we used to analyze stocks and stock markets. They are all just moving higher on printing money. That's the only thing that counts. It's like, yeah, it's an alcohol addict getting more alcohol all the time. So that's what it is. And there's no way out of this game anymore. So
come on, Florian, don't start up with these old-fashioned ideas of stuff like earnings and making money as a business. Come on, it's different this time, obviously. Although one thing that I would love to get your perspective on is what the silver environment is like in Europe. I hear about this VAT tax. I don't know if that's just London or you guys have that too. I hear it's not. I mean, like here you can fortunately call Miles Franklin or email them at Arcadia at Miles Franklin if you want to buy silver or gold. Although there's not like, I think you mentioned eBay before, but let's say someone's in Germany or anywhere in, I don't know if it's different within other parts of the Euro bracket
It is
union,
very,
but
very different.
how would you buy, let's say you want to buy 500 ounces of silver today. How do you do that there?
No, as I said, I mean, here in Germany, we have a really vibrant gold and silver scene, lots of precious metals dealer, because Germans have been buying a lot of gold and silver over the last 15, 20 years. And this is all due to the past, the Weimar hyperinflation. I mean, I heard these stories from my grandfather, and I know how the one side, the family from my mother, basically lost everything, and the father's side were able to save some money because they had gold and silver. So we all have some of these stories, and at least if you're a little bit awake, people were buying gold and silver quite a lot for the last 20 years. So we have a lot of online stores, we have a lot of shops in the cities, and you have great websites where you can compare the prices. So it's quite competitive, it's quite good. It really depends. I mean, there's a new law in place since January where you can only basically buy up to 2,000 euros in cash without any documentation. Used to be 15,000 a few years ago, then they lowered it to 10,000, and now it's 2,000. And this is just for Germany. In Italy, I think it's 500 euros the maximum. In France, it's even more crazy. It's very difficult in those countries, completely different than in Germany over the last few years. So there's really big differences in the Eurozone. And if you would want to buy, you have to make the decision. Do I want to have it physically in my own hand, or am I trusting a custodian? You could also use basically kind of a depot or a portfolio in Switzerland where they manage the silver for you. Usually if you buy the physical stuff here in Germany, you have to pay a 16% VAT. They have lowered the VAT in general from 19 to 16% to help the economy and the people due to Corona. Well, basically the consequences were that all the supermarkets had to reprice all the things that they had for those 3% change in VAT. Doesn't help anybody. It's a few euros that maybe a family saves in a month, but not even more. So it's a crazy typical idea of politicians without any relation to the practical business case. So if you want to buy 500 ounces of silver, yes, you go online, you compare the prices, and then it's up to you. Do you want to go there, put the cash on the table and do it physically transaction, or do you let it sent to you? No problem. It's very easy actually. And then of course you have custodians that also would basically store your physical silver for you if you want. And I think that's actually important to think about because I mean, I sold my silver in April 2011 at $44.
See, this is why I should have been signed up for Midas Touch Consulting back then. I would have known that it was time to sell.
I was a little bit too early, maybe in retrospect, but it was a great timing, really. I was lucky, and what I really wanted to tell you is like, I don't really want to know how stupid I must have looked when I carried all my bars, my silver bullion kilo bars. I had those 5 kilo Cook Island bars mainly because they were cheaper. They had like, I think 7% VAT back then. And yeah, I don't know how stupid I looked when all these people lined up to buy silver and I carried all those bars
well,
to the dealer. So what I want to say is you have to have also a strategy for like long-term silver, but clickable, so that you can move a little bit easier out of it if there might be a time to sell. So I certainly don't want to carry a ton of silver to the dealer.
If you need help,
So,
just let me know. I'll
yeah. So that's really something to
service I
consider
offer.
because I mean, just a few $1,000s already. It's heavy. Silver is still cheap,
Oh yeah.
so you
That's
need to consider this as well. But yeah, you want to have various places, right, for your stuff.
yeah, and actually my dog lately he's been into digging holes in the backyard, so I'm thinking about sending him out there. Nibbles burying, if you need some silver stash there, I'll send him over. And if
Hey,
anybody,
one really interesting thing I wanted to add, which is maybe interesting because in Germany, still precious metals, you don't have to pay any taxes if you hold them for more longer than 12 months. So if you invest in silver today and hold it for longer than a year, you don't have to pay any taxes on your gains, which is great.
well, I appreciate you sharing that. And because that's the kind of thing that even when people get into gold and silver, I mean, all right, you can figure out, not rocket science, what the Fed is doing. But knowing a lot of those things, especially over the long term, can save folks a lot of money. So I appreciate that you have Midas Touch Consulting, where if people have questions, they can get in touch and find out. Could you just let people know what the address is and some of the services you offer, and how people can find you there.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. The address is midastouch-consulting.com. We are focused on gold, silver, and
You knew
cryptocurrency.
which page I was going to.
Yes, yes. So, by the way, we have a weekly silver chart book. There you go.
Hmm.
So we have a weekly silver chart book. My partner Kobe is writing it. He's one of the best traders that I know. Every week you get his analysis. We have a few charts. Basically, here you can see how much silver has to catch up just to be even with gold at the moment. So that's actually
Yep.
quite a nice info, and it's
Like
a
that
long-term
arrow.
info. Yeah, and yeah, we also have a weekly crypto chart book for all those who want to be a little bit closer to Bitcoin and the developments in that sector. And I also publish basically all my research on gold and silver is being published there. And we have a free Telegram channel where people are invited to join us, ask questions. Our mission is really to help people because we know how hard it is trading and investing. It's quite a journey. It takes quite some time to become really successful. And most of the time, the people in the industry that you meet, they try to rip you off, especially the banks. I mean, that's how I started. We both, of course, have a musician background, right? And when I became successful in the late 90s and early 2000s and brought my money to the bank, well, the bank basically completely destroyed my portfolio in the internet bubble. That's where I had to make the decision, like, dude, I'm working so hard here, and I thought they would take care of, and they didn't know what they do basically, and they just screwed it up and charged commissions and fees on top of it. So I made the decision to take this in my own hands, and it was a long journey, without a doubt, and I had to learn quite a lot of painful lessons. And still, the market is always surprising again. But I worked hard on myself, on my strategy, on my investment strategy, and also on my trading strategy. And yeah, I think people find some valuable help if they join us. And most of it is free, basically. So yeah, I think we have quite a good thing to offer. And it's really, the idea is really to have a mastermind group, people all over the world helping each other. And I think that's how we can basically use these challenging but promising times. So
Well,
that's
I
my
sure appreciate that, and that you've used your life and your time to do that. It does very clearly show through not just your investment knowledge, but your demeanor and the way you phrase things. And because again, it's especially this past week, and you mentioned a couple examples along those lines where it's our perspective. People were freaking out 2 days ago. Now they're happy again, and really the market's going to do what it's going to do, but it's these things, having a plan in place, and it just kind of really shows clearly through what you do. I also have some good news. I finally figured out how to get Telegram loaded on my phone. So I will be
nice.
popping into the chat room group, and we will
Nice.
have the link to your website in the description field below. And Florian, after we hit the record button, I'm going to try and see if I can convince you to join us at Silverfest, which is going to be this September 12th to 13th. Maybe give a little European perspective of what's going on there, which I think people would really benefit from. So I thank you for, well, I got a few things on the list. A, the website. B, that all the things you could have been doing the last 20 years that you've done what you've done. And I know a lot of people are going to benefit from that. So thank you for joining me here today. And we will certainly look forward to doing this again soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Chris.